Joining me now is President Clinton's former director of speech writing, Michael Waldman. He's written nearly 2,000 speeches, including 4 State of the Unions, prepared President Clinton for the 1996 debates. He's the author of The Supermajority: How the Supreme Court is Dividing America. Michael, thanks so much for being with us. It has been the case in the past that incumbents sometimes perform poorly during their first debate. What do you think? I mean, obviously you heard Kevin and Kristen there a few moments ago talking about all these expectations and where the bar is being set. The Trump team first might have been setting the bar too low for Joe Biden, and now they're conscious of that. Where do you see things heading into this debate?
Well, it's definitely true that almost every incumbent president has lost the first debate. They're rusty. They're surrounded by people who tell them everything they say is brilliant. When they walk in a room, a Marine band plays Hail to the Chief. They're often just not ready to hear their policies or administration criticized face to face. Bill Clinton knew about this jinx. He practiced very hard and prepared very hard and did better. I think it seems like President Biden is doing the same thing up at Camp David. It helps to be away from all the friendly advisors who have lots of advice. I think both Biden and Trump, of course, they're both old. They both have expectations they can surpass. Trump can surpass expectations by just not being the way he was last time. I think where they will do well, either of them, is in talking about the future and what they want and the contrast on policy, less on kind of the theatrics of it.
Yeah, and Michael, I mean, what do you make of the way both candidates are preparing right now, both the president and the former president? It sounds like Joe Biden may be talking about or doing what you were just talking about a few moments ago, sort of preparing for this debate the way Bill Clinton did in 1996, and Donald Trump is not doing as much debate. Probably he's doing a lot of friendly interviews. What do you make of that contrast there?
You know, it's like a heavyweight bout. They're each doing their thing. I would also take it all with a bit of a grain of salt. Some of the questions that people care about, of course, immigration, the economy. I think the public this year also cares a great deal about the health of democracy. And that's going to be a challenge for Joe Biden, who said that this is a major issue for him to raise this. It's also something that Trump has things to say about. And I think it's also something I would encourage the CNN moderators not to rush past that issue, because I think this year it's really something people care about, and polls show it's a very high concern.
It absolutely is. And Michael, CNN has some reporting that outside advisors are urging the president to focus on Trump rather than his first-term record. What do you make of that piece of reporting there? And I mean, Biden is famously known for trusting a very small group of very much inside advisors, not outside advisors. What do you think?
And it's some of the same people who actually worked with Bill Clinton. I think presidents want to talk about what they see as the success of their record. I think Democrats in particular get a lot of advice from the outside saying, don't brag about your performance in the economy. It'll seem like you're out of touch, like you don't feel people's pain. I don't know that a debate is necessarily the best place to do it. I think that the contrast with the opponent, and again, both for Biden and I would guess for Trump too, what is it that they plan to do in the 4 years ahead? That's what people need to imagine with these two candidates who are much older than candidates have ever been.
And Michael, I'm sure you've been listening to some of this fodder going back and forth after months of painting Biden as senile and not, kind of lost his step and so on. Trump and his surrogates are now saying that he's going to be a worthy opponent. They're even suggesting that he may be getting some kinds of enhancements. Obviously, there's no proof of that, but they're just saying it anyway. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of challenge, I think, in fact checking, because it's not even, it's just an absurd statement and left out there. It can be take on a patina of some legitimacy. I mean, the interesting thing is, as we remember, President Biden did very well in the State of the Union, surprised people. He showed a great deal of vigor. I think debates are different. They're a more intimate setting. Biden thrived in the give and take of the room in Congress. Trump thrives in the give and take of his rallies. At least he displays a more distinctive persona. You know, Trump has expectation issues too that he will very possibly be trying to surpass by not being as bombastic as he was 4 years ago. Remember, he had COVID, it turned out. He was interrupting. I think the fact that the microphones are going to get turned off actually could help him.
Yeah, it might. You're absolutely right about that. All right, Michael Waldman, great to talk to you as always. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
So, Team Biden getting a lot of advice, solicited and probably unsolicited here. Outside advisors, we were reporting saying, don't talk about yourself, talk about him.
Listen, I can tell you as somebody who has been at the center of debate prep, there's always outside advice. But I do think there's some wisdom in recognizing that what Biden's trying to do here, what he should be trying to do on Thursday, is make this a choice. He doesn't want to come out of the debate on Thursday night having it have been a referendum on him. That is just, he should want the frame to be the contrast between Donald Trump, what he stands for himself, and Joe Biden, who he's fighting for, you, the middle class. And so he does have to draw contrast to do that. I think he has to be on the attack. He has to take he has to drive the conversation to the things that he wants to be focusing on, including the places where Trump is most politically vulnerable: abortion, democracy, January 6th. So I think, no question, Joe Biden has to be aggressive on Thursday.
What do you do then? And I promise I'm coming to you, but you're not
going
to like it when I do.
Take your time.
If the question is, what about the inflation, Mr. President? What about the fact that prices are 20% higher now than they were when you took office? How do you deflect that?
I understand what families are going through. I know that when you go to the grocery store and prices are higher, that's tough on your family, and that's tough when you're dealing with a family budget. Here are all the things I've done to bring prices down. Here's what I'm going to do in the next 4 years. Here's how Donald Trump's agenda is going to make things more expensive for you. Every answer has to come back around to, this is why Donald Trump is not a good alternative and not a viable choice. It doesn't mean Joe Biden doesn't talk about his accomplishments.
I love my dear friend Kate here, but the problem is Joe Biden, the president, isn't saying that. He's not saying that I recognize your struggles.
He actually is.
He's not campaigning, Kate, that I get that prices are expensive.
They just put out an ad where he says
but the president isn't on the stump saying to the American people that I understand that prices in the grocery stores are high, that I understand that many of you are struggling to buy your first home. If you're a young person, you're graduating from college, John, and moving to a city like New York or a city like Washington, D.C., you're going to be paying $3,000, $4,000 a month in rent. I understand that it's difficult for you to begin the future that I promised 4 years ago I would make palatable for a greater large percentage of the American people. The president can't run on that record. So what is he going to do? I suspect go after the former president. And my advice to Donald Trump would be every single time the president brings up something of the past, I would say, but the economy, but immigration, but foreign conflicts, remind the American people that they are not satisfied with the current reality and they want a new direction.
So they're each going to be talking about the other guy.
Absolutely. That's what it seems like to me, John.
I'm not sure I 100% buy the spin that we're getting from the Trump team that he's not preparing for the debates. He's just asking policy questions and doing interviews here. I think that's them wanting to say, oh, we're not really trying that hard. What do you think?
I think it would be incredibly naive to not focus on this debate. This debate is going to be incredibly important. We've seen what the margins are. We were talking earlier, Kate, about 2020. You're talking about, what, 3-4 states, around 40,000 vote difference. If you're Donald Trump and you're considering the reality that you lost states like Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, 10,000 in Georgia, 11,000 in Arizona, 22,000 in Wisconsin, if I'm your advisor, I'm saying, dude, I get that you might be this macho guy and I got it all. I don't need to prepare. But if we want to win this thing in November, you got to get your butt in the room with advisors and figure out the best way so that you can present yourself well to the American people, because this could be a groundbreaking moment that could determine whether you win or lose.
One thing unique to this debate is they are both presidents, one current and one former. And one of the problems that presidents, current and former, have in debates is that during preparation, it's hard to tell them to do better, right? It's hard to tell them when you're practicing, gosh, let's try that one again because I think we can get a better answer there. Kate, you've been in the room with him doing this kind of thing. Who can and how do you tell President Biden that he needs to do better?
Well, I will tell you, people actually do. People do, because Biden wants to do well. He wants to have a good performance. He wants to have a genuine back and forth. There's a lot of time in debate prep with Joe Biden spent going through answers with him, getting his feedback on how he wants to address things and saying, sir, I think that wouldn't work and I would consider this way. Now, he may say, absolutely not, you're wrong. And sometimes he's right. But sometimes he'll say, you know what, that is a better way to go about it. So for him, debate prep really is a genuine back and forth, and he does hear feedback. I will say, though, it is typically, historically, hard for presidents in their first debate out of the gate, because not necessarily because they don't get direct feedback, but just because they've been running the country, right? I mean, they haven't been focused on debating and the specifics of debating, which, despite what Donald Trump may say, is actually different than doing an interview, and especially than doing an interview with a friendly podcaster.
Look,
so,
and
we'll see.